Now it's on. Yep.
Okay.
Push.
You're on. Teachers' unions. What's the role of teachers' unions in combating?
Well, teachers' unions originally were formed so that teachers could get paid properly. Make no mistake about that. Now, unfortunately, teachers' unions are being used as a sledgehammer to get things that, let me put it this way. My biggest problem when I was doing the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise was the teachers' union in the Riceville school. Because what I was teaching was not what they wanted to be taught. And what I was teaching was getting some attention that they didn't want me to have. And I could understand that. I understand perfectly what it was they were angry about. However, teachers' unions should be organized to improve the level of education that's offered in the schools, not to improve the level of pay that teachers get. You and I know that there are some teachers you can't pay enough. They're so good, you couldn't pay them enough for what they're doing for kids. You and I also know that there are some teachers who should not be allowed in the presence of children. I'll never forget the teacher who came down from the junior high one day, down to the lunchroom, where my sister was, who was substituting in the school that day, and she said, "The worst thing just happened in my classroom." Well, what happened? I used the N-word, and one of those kids said, "We don't use that word in this school, and if you're going to use it, I'm going to go out in the hall and stay until you stop using it. What would you have done?" And my sister said, "Well, I think I'd stop using the N-word." Now, my sister didn't gain any friends by saying that. On the other hand, she told the teacher what the teacher should have known. The students shouldn't have had to tell her, "We don't use that word." Now, when Abraham Lincoln was young, that was a perfectly acceptable word, because Abraham Lincoln it was used to refer to him because he was part white, part black, and part Cherokee Indian. Now, that's not something most people know. Most Republicans don't know that, because if they knew that, they would stop calling the Republican Party the Party of Lincoln. I think that is one of the most ironic things that every time I see a Republican, I think, and do you know who your standard bearer was? Part white, part black, and part Cherokee Indian? That kind of fact kids should learn in school. They should learn the truth about these people. They should learn that Abraham Lincoln was a great president, except that he said that all the Negroes, as they called them, should go back to Africa. And he was part one of them. So that kind of thing. Racism twists our behaviors, twists our conceptions, twists our characters, twists us into something we need never have been if we had been allowed to see people as just wonderful people of different colors. If we could realize that every one of us is a shade of brown. I heard a mother say last week, 2 weeks ago, "My little brown son." And I thought, that's one. We're making progress. That kid isn't black. That kid, my little brown son. Now, what sounds better to you, my little brown son or my little black boy? That's another thing. When somebody calls you and wants to know what your email address is, and you say, and the email address has a B in it, and they say, "Is that B for boy?" And you say, "Absolutely not. Boy is the word that we have used to infantilize black males for the last 200 years in this country. Do you have a vocabulary that you can think of another word that begins with B other than boy?" And that's the one that we use most often. We need to watch our language. We need to be more specific about the things that we say. Words are the most powerful weapon devised by humankind. We kill people with words on a daily basis. You know it, and I know it. You don't have to go to war with people to destroy a country. All you have to do is accuse them of ugly, ugly things, and you can create an idea in the people that you're talking to about that whole country of people, and we're doing it right now. We have done it for years, and we're still doing it. We need to put a stop to it. This is only one world. I belong to the family of man, and so do you. And the Bible doesn't talk about the families of man. It talks about the family of man, because there's only one, and we all belong to it. And it's time for us to realize that. Every person on the face of the earth is my 30th to 50th cousin. And I get really angry when some of my ignorant, pale-faced cousins mistreat some of my darker-skinned cousins because of my pale-faced cousins' ignorance about skin color and what it means and what causes it. If you want to be an educator, then you've got to realize that every one of those children, regardless of their name, their skin color, their gender, every one of them is one of my 30th to 50th cousins. And let me catch you acting in a racist way around one of those students, and I'll recommend that you be put into a different position. Not the janitor, because janitors have to love kids. They have to be kind to kids, and kids have to, and here's what you can do as a teacher. Instead of teaching the 3 R's of reading, writing, and arithmetic, only one of which begins with R. Reading begins with R, writing begins with W, and arithmetic begins with an A. So quit referring to the 3 R's of reading, writing, and arithmetic. You're showing your ignorance every time you do it. Teach the 3 R's of rights, respect, and responsibility. And if every child is expected to respect the rights of every person on that campus and will be held responsible if they don't, we can change what happens in the schools in this country. And when you change what happens in the schools, where you have those kids for 8 hours a day, you can change a society. If we did a good job as educators, we could change this society.